I genuinely thought that I was done with antagonists, but then Terry Pratchett's spark of inspiration struck me. I think that I was able to sum up my problem with the misunderstood antagonist trope and what I would like to avoid when creating my antagonists in that regard. And that's when the backstory for those characters, their character development, which an enemy of my protagonist does need, slowly twists and warps into an excuse for the actions of the antagonist that exist mostly to make me as the reader feel sympathy and forgiveness towards them. I think that it's very important to make a sharp distinction between an explanation and an excuse, and also the acknowledgement that what they did, the antagonist, was wrong and deserves actual consequences no matter the reasons for doing so. And then it's also on me as the author to make sure that it's clear from the setting itself that what the antagonist did was wrong, because there are obviously nuances to this as well, and those absolutely need to be explored and explained. But when they truly turn out to be wrong compared to what is considered right and just in that universe, I don't want to end up trying to make up excuses for the antagonists to make them seem less evil, and on the other hand, to allow the antagonist to act out evil as the villain, as an opposing force for the protagonist without losing character, without serving as just this cardboard cutout that is just there laughing maniacally while doing evil for the sake of doing evil. I can imagine that striking a balance between these two extremes is going to be, well, extremely challenging, even for someone who's an actual author. But I do think that it's very important to at least attempt this if I am to truly write a story that will be perfect for me, because as of late, a story with this sort of a fake antagonist is very unsatisfying for me, and especially when it comes to a fake female antagonist. So hopefully I'll be able to somewhat reach a satisfying level of true evil, despicable yet understandable, maybe even reasonable compared to the setting they have to deal with, without stealing any of their agency, any of their purpose that they serve in the story. I'm at least going to do my very best to keep everything that I've mentioned so far in mind in notes while writing my current story and every other that I might ever write in the future, at least until something in me again changes as drastically as my current taste changed a few years ago in terms of storytelling and characters, world building. But for now, everything I have mentioned about antagonists is very important and very impactful towards my enjoyment of a story that I am reading or interacting with in any other way. So, with that being said, I am going to hopefully close the antagonist chapter for real now and move on to the next topic while continuing the adventures of the Rapid Arrows Club, which I left the last time when they lost their club room and immediately got the opportunity to get another one once they repair it, furnish it, and equip it with whatever the clubroom needed to serve its purpose. And their first task is to clean up everything, give the walls a new coat of paint, and even add some pictures once they are done with that. Cowboys and Indians, since Karl May's stories were rather big when Jaroslav Foglar was creating the Rapid Arrows comic books, and when everything is done and the clubroom is finally ready to be used, when the boys are there during one evening, Yindra and Redcap notice someone staring intently into the room from the garden outside. The rest of the boys haven't noticed anything, but they still ask the wife of the landlord if she knows anything about someone moving around the garden, especially during the night. And even though she isn't aware of anything specific regarding the garden itself, she tells the boys that some weird things have been happening around the building lately. So the boys decide to investigate because just way too many weird things have been going on around. Weird sounds, steps, and even Mirek admits that it's making him nervous. So the next day, they find some tracks underneath the window the two boys saw the face in, and later on, they find a message that tells them to leave the club room the sooner the better for their own good. Then even the landlord comes in and tells them to stay away from the attic. The subsequent superficial surface investigation reveals nothing of importance, so they decide to regroup and equip themselves properly for the night time with flashlights and so on and so forth to try again next time. So the boys leave, and Redcap and Speedy, who live in that house, are quite nervous for good reason, and Speedy is even begging the heavens themselves to have mercy on those left behind in the mysterious horror house. When the boys regroup, they are ready for some real detective work. All the clues point to something weird going on, and weird coincidences, contradictory statements, and quite suspicious movements of various inhabitants of the building. They see a few men moving stealthily around the basement. Prior to that, Redcap warns the rest of the boys that he heard some child screaming somewhere in the garden, and then they encounter the foreman carrying a coffin into the basement. Once they leave, the boys immediately rush to open it only to find it empty instead of what they thought that it's for the tortured child that Redcap heard scream in the garden, which just serves to deepen the mystery. But they have all the four men that they have noticed before in one place, and they hear some sounds as if someone's hitting something with a hammer. So they continue to investigate and find a lit up room where the four men turn out to be just playing cards, and whenever they smack the card hard onto the table, it makes those weird sounds, and when they are moving stealthily around the stairs, it's because the landlord is firmly against them playing it to stop them from bothering the other tenants, and the attempts to remove the club members from the club room were from these four men trying to secure a warm place for them to play the cards at, and the empty coffin was there because one of those card players is a gravekeeper and just stored it there for one day before an order is to be fulfilled. So some of the mysteries get resolved in this sort of a misunderstanding, but some are still standing. like the smell of a roasted game coming from the landlord's apartment, and the crying child, and the forbidden attic. So the investigation is not over yet, but the boys decide to leave it for the next week. Then Indra catches the landlord behaving suspiciously around a crate, which he tells the rest of the rapid arrows during their club meeting, and they are ready to make a bust at the attic, following the landlord there, who's been carrying pots of food up there. They finally follow him and rapid fire all the accusations and findings that they have accumulated so far. Where did he put the child that's been screaming in the garden? Why is he carrying the pots to the attic? Where is he getting the money to buy the expensive game? And what was he hiding underneath the crate with ashes, which Indra saw at the beginning of this one? The landlord, taken aback, takes a moment before he starts laughing and reveals everything to the young detective. He's been raising rabbits up there. That's what those pots of food were for, and didn't want the boys up there so that they won't scare and disturb the rabbits. The rabbits were also the source of the smell of the supposedly expensive game. The screaming, tortured child was actually a stray cat singing the night songs of her people. And what was he doing underneath the crate? Well, he was hiding a spare keys for his family. And that's the end of this detective adventure, with Mirek anguishing over the shame and disgrace they have brought upon themselves with their assumptions and allegations. And this is how the horror mystery of the new clubroom and the house itself ended, with a huge misunderstanding and a pair of twisted ears, which is about the best outcome they could have ever expected, considering what could have happened and the consequences this could have had. And this is where I'm going to stop for today, and I'm going to continue in the next one, hopefully this time with protagonists and more rapid arrows.